G'day guys, Calvin. Okay. And Jason from the Car Tune Company. Wait.
Box of stuff.
We're in the process of wiring up a Zephyr with a Haltech, and we're going to run the automatic transmission. Now, this is quite a new thing to be doing. I rang the guys at Haltech, and I asked them if they'd done it. They said no. But the logic for an A340 and an A341 is the same, and they've done A340s. I've also happened through this process, I brought a little box, this little box from Scott, Next Level Motorsport, and he's super helpful. And I actually got on the internet the other day and I found Scott's Supra. His partner's Supra that he's got running, and because he's a dealer, he actually had, I think he had like beta software. So he had really early stuff. And he's really keen to help out as well, which is kind of helpful. I brought some more of these boxes because I've got more of these jobs to do. Now, before I rang the guys at Haltech, I got on and I went through and I set up some stuff. I had a couple of little issues that I came across, and I'll show you them for the guys that are new to setting up the transmissions. The process of setting up a transmission, I've done it plenty of times with other ECUs. So the desire to learn is very high when doing the Haltech, and it looks really good. The way it's set up and what I've seen, and I've already made some mistakes sitting late at night, a couple of brain fades, all that sort of stuff. But I worked my way through it and got a good result. Now is actually the time to put all that knowledge that I've learnt into actually writing the program to run the engine and the transmission before I start my wiring. I've got information. I've got scribbles of my own notes, and I've got my laptop. So let's jump on there. Let's do a setup. Let's have a bit of a chat. Okay, let's turn it on. It's already turned on.
Let's go to the laptop.
Let's proceed to the laptop and write this program. Yep. Alright guys, let's have a look at this. We're using the ESP for the 2500. We're using a Elite 2500 to do this job. And I had a mate from the UK, Chris. He sent me a base file which I downloaded, which gave me a bit of an idea. Go open, and I'm pretty sure in my downloads it will come up. This one, 28 Ford with a 1J. Not that we do 1Js. We're not a JZ workshop, we're a V8 workshop. And so we brought it up, and it had some really interesting stuff. This must have been really old setup, which I thought was still pretty interesting to show how it shifted the transmission. What it had down here, we had solenoid 1, and solenoid 1 was on in gear 1 and gear 2. And then it was off in 3 and 4. Solenoid 2 was on in gear 2 and 3, and then off in 4. And that's some really, really simple shift logic. I thought that was pretty cool actually. Some line pressure, and then a shift table showing where it would shift from first gear to second gear to third gear to fourth gear. And I understood that really well, and that would have worked. It also had an accumulator solenoid, which wasn't set up at all. So I thought that was really interesting, but in the Nexus, it had, see this, the later software had transmission heading. It was populated in the vehicle information and in the functions. So I went in and I thought, well, we'll open a file and all that little stuff be there, I'll just turn on transmission control. So I went open, and I was actually in here. I was in Haltech, and I was in ECU maps, and I thought I'd just grab a map, default map there, and for the Elite. So there's a default map, and I'd go into the setup over here. I wasn't going in the engine. I'd go in the functions, and I would just add, remove a function, and I thought I'd just search for transmission, like that, and nothing came up. And I went round in circles. It's a little bit annoying. And then I actually managed to get it to work like I wanted, and I couldn't remember what I did over the weekend, after the weekend. I thought, well, maybe I would find a base map with a transmission function in it. Cancel out of there. File, open, in the tuning maps, and I'd go down to, let's see, go to Alexis. We had an IS300, but they're both manual. And in fact, all of them were manual. Every single one was manual, which didn't really help me at all, except for a dirty old Holden. Oh, no, it was a G... Oh, was it a Ford? It wasn't a Ford, it was definitely a Commodore.
No, it's GM for it, wasn't it?
Was it a GM product?
You were saying about that?
Yeah, there it is. An LS. So a VY Commodore is what it was. VY Commodore with a 4L60. And I opened that up. And it actually had the transmission stuff populated. I thought that's really cool. Hurry up. Come on. Things go slow. I actually talked to the guys at Haltech on Friday, and one of them offered to send me a base map, but I think he was ready for a weekend. He really did need a weekend. And there we go. Transmission. There we go. Shift settings. Shift mode points. This one's really interesting. This is the 400 kilometer per hour shift from third gear into fourth gear. So to get it to shift from third to fourth, you had to be going 400 kilometers per hour. And it would shift from fourth to third at 30 kilometers per hour. I actually had to work out what these numbers meant initially, which it didn't make sense to me. But if I went to the Nexus, if I just go for an A340 very quickly, I'd have to turn everything on, all the line pressure and everything on. We'll give it a line pressure control. And I have to put in gear detection, gear position sensor. On the Nexus, it had 2 to 1, 1 to 2 shift. See, all these numbers kind of made sense. But these are exactly the same numbers as in the ESP software. It doesn't have the little arrow. So this is when it's changing gear from second to first, and that's the shift point for doing that. Really interesting. So anyway, back to the 2500. So this, I could have adapted this to make it work. The better way was to actually just go File, go New, get a 2500 ECU, and get the most recent release date. There we go. Push OK. And it takes a little while to load. I have since talked to Haltech again, the help crew, and I got a really helpful guy, and he did send me through a base file for a JZ again with an A340. But now if I go here and I go to functions and I go add remove and I search transmission, transmission control comes up because it's in the newer firmware right there. and I put it over there, and I push OK, and it will have a bit of a freak out because it'll say, oh no, you haven't set up the transmission stuff. So, oh, where'd it go? Come back. There he goes. And then I can go through and set all the transmission up. So that's, and I know the logic, I know all the ways of doing it. I actually did manage to go through and I set it up as like a generic transmission and my own shift logic as well. But it's much easier if you can to start with a known base map. So the guys at, as I said, the guys at Haltech did send me a base map for a JZ. So that's what we're actually going to start with. So I'm going to file and I'm just going to open the base map which I had, I downloaded. 2JZG plus T with an A340E auto made 295 kilowatts apparently. That's the file I'm using. And that will have transmission control. And so the difference between a 340 and a 341, the main difference is the way it does the line pressure. 341 has a line pressure cable. It's not the kickdown cable, it's a line pressure cable. And that mechanically increases line pressure. And the solenoid dumps the line pressure to give a smoother shift. I probably should say that I have sort of got an idea with where I'm going with this on how the process I'm going to do to set it all up. I'm going to have to calibrate the speed sensor, the rear speed sensor. I'm going to need to ensure the gear shifts go in. That will give me some shifting patterns and allow me to drive it. And for the meantime, line pressure can be full line pressure. It'll just be a little bit firmer in the shifts. And then I can add that in later on. I also do have a little bit of an advantage here, as I've got the shifter schedule and transmission schedule and all that information that's for a 92 Sora. Very similar transmission, but the one I'm working on doesn't have a kickdown switch under the throttle pedal. And my one has a temperature sensor in the box, doesn't rely on the engine temp for its temperature logic or changes to the box. So if you look here, diagnostic trouble codes, for example, there's the shift schedule, at what kilometers per hour it shifts through the different gears and different shift points. So that's going to be really helpful for setting this up to give me one of the maps that should be as close to factory as I can. The idea is we make it close to factory and then we make it better. Right, with this one we come down here and we have, there's our transmission stuff. For example, there's your torque converter lockup. We've got automatic mode shift patterns. No 400 kilometer per hour shifts here. So it'll shift from first to second at 16 kilometers per hour at very low throttle. It won't quite do that at no throttle. It'll effectively, so it needs to roll off in first before it will change to second. For example, 10% throttle, it'll be doing 21 k's an hour if you've got very light throttle. If you give it much more throttle, it will go up to 53 kilometers per hour when it shifts. Regardless, it will shift into second gear. I think unless I put a don't let it shift gear select on it. So I can actually prevent it in some conditions from changing gear. Like if the shift is in first, it won't allow it to shift up. So you can just sit on the rev limiter. Handy. Yeah, so. We're not talking about burnouts in the Zephyr. Okay, not so. Yeah, it's got a lot of rubber under the guards. It does. So when it's coming back down, we have to make sure that the shift down is lower than the shift up, because otherwise it's going to have a freak out. Okay, so this is first to second. This is second to first. This is second to third. Those are the Ks it will shift. Again, at 100 Ks, it's going to go into third regardless. Third back to second, third to fourth, and fourth back to third. What are shift settings? Oh, yep, so it's full auto, rear wheel drive, how the speed of the shift, all based on the TPS. We got the converter lockup. There's no, and this one there's no line pressure even turned on at this point, so we'll need to turn that on. I'm going to focus on the transmission stuff, but I actually need to set up everything in this to make it work, because if I swap it from a 6 to an 8, suddenly some of the outputs that we used as a 6-cylinder, like the ignition outputs, is not going to work on the V8 because I'm using them for ignition again. So the Haltech will actually tell me I've got issues, which is actually a really cool feature. That's I really, really like that feature. So we're going up to the main setup. We're no longer going to have a 3000, we're going to have a 4000 cc. We're going to straight away cause some issues, put it to an 8-cylinder. Straight away, it had a bit of a freak out, pulled up a whole lot of redness.
There's cream for that.
Yeah, there's cream for that. Not everyone's going to hear the man in the back with the cheap seats. So 153,624. We probably need to make it 184. We've got to fire the firing order incorrectly. Incorrectly, as I said. Firing order must contain all unique values, telling me even what I've done wrong. 18436,572. And suddenly it goes white, we're on the right track, and we need to put the correct banks in. And this will help for oxygen sensor, putting a dual Haltech wideband. So odds are on number 1, evens are on bank 2. I don't need to change that one. I don't need to change it. Gravity's working, Jace. And of course now suddenly, do you think I can use a 2JZ GE crank trigger? What have they got? They've got 3 on the cam sensors, eh? They got 3 points on the cam?
Yeah, on the model. Is it a sugar or not?
Non-VVTi, so this one's it actually tells us anyway. It comes up. The Haltech's really cool, so it says it's got 24 tooth. Oh no, so this has got JZGE is on the can, there's 24 teeth. And on the crank, if it's a GTE on the crank, it's 12 tooth, which are the same, and home is 1 tooth. So it would actually run the UZ perfectly if we hadn't put a VVTi trigger wheel in it. I could just use the JZ triggers. But we put the VVTi in it. See, it's got the UZ here, the 2UZ. Oh, another really cool feature I should talk about. And for anyone who's doing this stuff, you should know about the help function, this one, which it won't go in because I'm in this screen here, but you've got the help function. Really, really helpful to actually read that before you start asking lots of questions. Even if you end up asking a question that's covered in there, at least you'll have some knowledge, or you've attempted to solve it yourself. This is why the help guys get a bit frustrated asking all these questions. So it's nice to have some knowledge first. I've also got this other really cool feature. I don't have any internet. Let me get some internet. I actually live in a spot where there is no land-based internet, so I have to do it all off my phone, which makes it a challenge at times. We will have internet in just a moment. We'll let that fire up. But there's a knowledge base. If you Google Haltech knowledge base, there's some really neat stuff that comes up. It's really cool. So this engine I've fitted, as I said, with a VVTi trigger wheel. So 2Z. Crank is 36 with 2 missing, which is correct. And it's got home as 3 teeth, one big, one medium, one small. And I think that's going to be a problem. We're running off a single home sensor. The 3UZ comes up. If we go 3UZ, that one there. Again, it's the same as a 2UZ. So the 2UZ non-VVTi would work for me. So I'm actually just, in this case, because I put that trigger wheel in there, I'm just going to put it as a custom. Which I'm sure there's custom in here somewhere. Missing tooth, single tooth home. We're going with that one. It's on the crank. It's 36. It's 2 missing. The offset is going to be the same as a 2UZ. So if we just do Haltech knowledge base. Haltech knowledge base. Comes up here. Really cool information. I've used it for other jobs as well. Down to Toyota. On your Z. And this one, the 2UZ, it's got a 285 offset. Have we got 2UZ as an offset here? Oh, 2UZ 285. 2UZ and 3UZ. So I'm going to tap in here. 285. I will, of course, confirm that by checking the base timing at the when I've got the engine running. Reluctor. Let's check it on the quick start. Oh. What should the synchronization mode be? So we're going with an always synchronization mode. That should allow my engine to actually start, hopefully. Yep, no, that looks good actually. Oh wait. Right. Just popped it back to generic missing tooth, single tooth home. So that should get it to go, but we've got a little red bit up here. That's because someone made it an 8-cylinder. Hey Jay, someone made it 8-cylinder. Tap an 8 in here, and then that's going to have a freak out in some of the allocation of some of the stuff in the map. Okay, so we've set up the map. We've set up the triggers. We've set up the engine side of things. And we've set up the triggers. I'm going to move over to functions, but we'll put that in a separate video. Talk to you again in the next one.